Hello lovelies, and welcome to a new episode of Real Nightmares. Here we watch horror movies that are based on a true story and compare them to the true horrors they're based off of. I'm Katie Adkins, or Heart Scale, and as you can see, we are in a new studio! Whee! I moved to a new space, decided to set up a whole new studio space. Very excited by it. I am not an interior decorator, however, so if you hate it, oh well. Sorry. Decorating interiors is not my, it's not my forte. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Cocaine Bear, released in 2023. Lots of publicity just for its name alone, and everyone was really shocked to see the inspired by true events tagline. Now, of course, I had to rep a girl from my home state and see it in theaters. Cocaine Bear takes place in the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia, and as a Georgia girl myself, I feel it is my duty to map out Georgia for you all, as someone who has only lived in and around Atlanta.
Okay, so this is Georgia and here is Atlanta. As you can see, it's the only urban area in the entire state. And then we get closer, and this area right here is a rough estimate of the Blue Ridge Mountains, aka Appalachia. And right here is a rough estimation of where Cocaine Bear took place. Moving from Atlanta, you can drive up this way and then walk to where Cocaine Bear was, or you can drive up this way and again walk to where Cocaine Bear is. Each route, depending on traffic, is about an hour 15 minutes. So you could say the Cocaine Bear took place about an hour 15 minutes north of where I'm from. Watch out for this area that's Lake Lanier, the deadliest lake in the country. A lot of people die there. It's death. Just don't go there. There's a lot of bodies currently in the lake that have never been recovered. Actually, now that I think about it, the whole state is kind of scary and could potentially lead to imminent death. So maybe we'll just mark that red as well. I don't really know a whole lot about any of these areas as they scare me. I only go to Atlanta and the mountains. That's about it. Oh wait, no, I have been to Savannah. I've been over here in Tybee Island, Tybee Beach. That's Georgia. I only lived there for 30 years.
So now that we all have a better understanding of where Cocaine Bear took place, let's refresh our memories on what exactly happened in Cocaine Bear. And then we can see just how accurate it was to the real Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear begins with a coked up man having the time of his life, throwing duffel bags of cocaine out of a plane as he straps up to jump out himself in his Gucci loafers. But before his glorious descent, he knocks his head on the doorframe and flops to his death. Black bears are not motivated by territoriality. They will seldom attack humans in their vicinity. When they do attack, victims have a higher probability of surviving by fighting back rather than submitting. Source: Wikipedia. My high school literature teacher is sobbing right now. Two European hikers are having a relaxing time in the Chattahoochee National Forest, chatting and discussing plans for their wedding, when they spot a whacked-out black bear.
We have such good luck in nature.
What's up?
By the way, never run from a bear. Move slowly sideways. Bears don't view this as threatening. If the bear follows you, you should stop and hold your ground. Bears run just as fast as horses, so you just do not want to run ever. You will not win that race. I wasn't alive in the 80s. I didn't know what DARE was until I was an adult, but boy do I remember the Say No to Drugs campaign. They really were out here saying if you do crack, you'll die in a ditch on the side of the road.
Smoking crack is like putting a gun in your mouth and pulling the trigger.
Still never done crack, so I guess it worked? But they never taught me about any of the other drugs. They really were just kind of pushing that the only drugs that existed were cigarettes and crack. I had no idea all these others existed. I was so sheltered until I was like 13. I actually asked a kid at school what weed was and they made fun of me. Childhood was embarrassing.
Millions of dollars worth of cocaine dropped from the sky early today onto a driveway in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Turns out the deceased skydiver who jumped out of the plane was heavily armed, had 70 pounds of cocaine in a duffel bag, was wearing Gucci loafers, and is identified as Andrew C. Thornton II.
What's the C stand for?
Thornton was one of Sid White's guys out of Missouri. He's a known drug trafficker with ties to Colombia.
The rest of the movie follows three main plot lines: Knoxville, Tennessee detective Bob, St. Louis drug smuggler David, and preteen North Georgia girl Dee Dee. Let's start with David. A drug dealer from St. Louis, Missouri, he is assigned by his boss Sid White to pick up the cocaine packages that Thornton threw into the Chattahoochee National Forest in North Georgia. He's forced to bring Sid's depressed son Eddie, who is mourning the death of his wife Joan.
It says John. Her name is fucking Joan.
Look, we could get it fixed.
They discuss details in a St. Louis bar before embarking on their journey to Georgia. Cut to Bob. He's a detective in Knoxville, Tennessee, who immediately knows Andrew Thornton by reputation. He gets tipped off by a trucker in St. Louis that a couple of guys at a bar might be Sid White's guys and are headed to pick up the fallen cocaine packages in Georgia. He asks his coworker Reba to watch his cute little Shih Tzu before heading off to Georgia to investigate and possibly track David and Eddie down. It's important you know Rosette is played by two different Hollywood doggies, New York and Paris. Then we have Dee Dee, a preteen girl I assume lives in Blairsville or Helen, Georgia if she's hiking distance to Blood Mountain. She gets frustrated when she feels her mom is prioritizing her new boyfriend over her, changing their weekend plans from going hiking, painting pictures of waterfalls, to going to see her boyfriend's band play in Nashville. Dee Dee and her friend Henry decide to skip school and go paint the waterfall without her mom. But this is a very accurate North Georgia home. A lot of them still look like this. Dee Dee's mom, Sari, quickly learns of their plan to head to Secret Falls and sets out to track them down. Next, we meet Ranger Liz, the only actor in this entire movie where if you told me she was a local Georgia actor, I 100% would believe you. But she's not. Margot Martindale, originally from Texas, I assumed used her experience working and living in Louisville, Kentucky as inspiration for her accent and character as Ranger Liz. Everyone else who's supposed to be a Georgia native in the film just comes across as some sort of LA actor faking an accent.
I like the green one.
This is a red one.
But joke's on me, because it turns out some of these actors are Irish. They didn't even film in Georgia. They filmed in Ireland. But the forests of Ireland are so similar to the forests of Georgia, they actually kind of had me fooled with that. I was looking at the forests and was like, yeah, that looks like Georgia.
Is that perfume?
Well, it's none of your business.
Well, it smells really nice.
Bless his heart, he tried his best. We learn Ranger Liz fashioned herself with some expensive European perfume as she's waiting for someone to show up, who I assumed is a retired Cub Scout troop leader. Peter shows up.
Someone been smoking?
He was. Cigarettes kill people.
Forest fires are the #1 cause of death for wildlife.
Before anyone else arrives on the scene, Dee Dee and Henry find some of the fallen cocaine and decide to do cocaine. I don't feel comfortable showing clips of children doing drugs, so you can use your imaginations or just watch the movie yourself. Cocaine Bear crashes the party. Truly the most effective Say No to Drugs campaign I've ever seen. If a coked up bear was released in my school, you better believe I'd be sober for life. Or maybe become an alcoholic. High risk, high reward. Sari teams up with Ranger Liz and Peter, and they begin the search for two coked up kids on Blood Mountain. Shortly after is when our St. Louis boys show up to hunt down the blow.
He's big, buds.
Empty your pockets.
And David shows three 27-year-old men cosplaying as teenagers that mugging people is wrong and finds out they know where the cocaine might be. They grab one to guide them to where they stash the rest.
We stashed it under a gazebo.
A gazebo?
It's civilian type structure.
I know what the fuck a gazebo is.
I didn't.
Sari finds Henry hiding up a tree and he tells her the bear took Dee Dee.
Yeah, I know. It was farts.
Hey, that's inappropriate.
The bear gets a lick in on Ranger Liz.
You're safe. Bears can't climb trees.
Of course I can!
Then why are you up here?
Goes after Henry, and then Peter gets got.
We didn't know the bear was the cocaine bear.
Sari and Henry are on the move to search for Dee Dee. Back at the visitor center, a few mishaps occur, and finally Detective Bob arrives on the scene. And the paramedics get called, not knowing what they're up against. They rush into the ambulance.
Tom, get in! Wait!
A high-speed bear chase ensues. No one survives. Detective Bob makes it to the gazebo first and immediately discovers the drugs. There aren't enough hornets' nests for that to be a realistic Georgia gazebo, by the way. The drug plot reaches its climax here with a standoff with David and Bob. A few fingers are lost.
How'd he take those 2 fingers off? They're not even next to each other.
The bear crashes on top of Eddie, and we learn she's a girly girl.
The bear is a girl.
Oh, how do you know that?
Because its vagina is on my ear.
Girl bossed her way too close to the sun, and now she's a coke addict. A tale as old as multi-level marketing. They learn the bear is a coke addict. Sid crashes the party and takes matters into his own hands.
A bear did cocaine, Dad. Fuck this.
Bob gives the duffel bag to the bear, and Reba reveals herself to be a dirty cop working alongside Sid.
I'm sorry, Bob.
I'm sorry, Bob.
I trusted you with Rosette.
I know.
Who's Rosette?
The dog in my car.
You left a dog in the car?
The bear hunt begins, and we lose Bob. Sorry and Henry find Dee Dee hanging out with a bad crowd. Our drug runners catch up with Mama Bear in tow.
Who the fuck are you?
I'm Henry, and I am so fucking tired!
They all start jumping into the water to avoid the bear. Sid fires a few shots. David gets hit in the crossfire. Our independent, hardworking, single mother bear seemingly dies before being revived. Only thing scarier than a bear on cocaine is a bear on cocaine protecting her cubs. Everyone licks their wounds and heads home. Rosette gets a new dad.
Whose dog is this?
I think it's mine.
Is it on cocaine?
No.
That's a good dog.
Our unlikely heroes slowly walk home into the sunset. Authorities never recovered any of Andrew Thornton's dumped bags of cocaine. As far as anyone knows, they are still in the forest to this day. But before we cut to credits, we allude to the Cocaine Bear family taking its next victims. I do not remember this Berenstain Bears book. In loving memory of Ray Liotta, who passed away in 2022 of natural respiratory issues and acute heart failure. Our mustache kid gets a ride to New York City, but not before suspecting some sheep to be drug addicts. That was a fucking wild ride. So many characters, so much side plot, so much gore, so many lives taken and changed by the Cocaine Bear. So, how much of that was true? In December of 1985, in the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia, a hunter found a dead bear, not only covered in cocaine, but with cocaine thrown all around it. Fran Wiley, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in Gainesville, Georgia, received a call one day from a game warden in Fannin County, Georgia. They reported a dead bear along with a parachute and a duffel bag close by. She told them to take the duffel bag and the parachute to the crime lab in Atlanta. They found residue of cocaine on the outside of the bag, but none inside of the bag. First responders on the scene came to the conclusion the bear ate it. Believe it or not, the cocaine bear is the second animal in Georgia to come to its demise from overdosing on cocaine. In 1982, a farmer had found a blue cylinder opened in his pasture that the cows had gotten into. There was white powder all over their noses, and they were acting a little sus. Could the cocaine cows and cocaine bear be linked? Do they have the same supplier? I want to know if there's going to be a prequel, Cocaine Bear 2, Origins, the Untold Story of Coked Up Cows. But before we get into that, I want to know why I wasn't invited to the party. Everyone's having fun without me. Let's rewind to September of 1985 to Knoxville, Tennessee. An elderly man heard a loud thud in his backyard. In the morning, he saw a man with a semi-deployed parachute lying, unmoving, in his gravel driveway. So naturally, he called the police and was just like, there is an intruder in my front lawn, and if you don't come and take care of it, I'ma take care of him myself. Which is just the most southern old man thing I have ever heard. They all are just begging for the opportunity to shoot an intruder on their lawn. It's kind of crazy. The trespasser was in fact a skydiver, and that's when Jimmy Jones, Knox County detective, is called to the scene. The parachute was wadded up next to the body as if it wasn't fully opened. And there was a duffel bag tied to him that was full of 75 pounds of cocaine. For those of us, me, who have no idea how much cocaine costs, 75 pounds of cocaine is worth about hundreds of thousands of dollars. On the body, they found one attack knife, along with some daggers that were actually sheathed on his arm, night vision goggles, about $5 grand in cash, a bag of precious stones in a fanny pack, a 9mm Browning high-powered pistol loaded with Teflon-coated bullets. It's illegal to have Teflon-coated bullets, by the way, because it's considered armor piercing. A car wouldn't protect you against it, or a bulletproof vest, that type of thing. He was wearing really expensive jumping shoes that someone dubbed the Gucci loafers of the parachuting world. Important note, he was not actually wearing Gucci loafers. Some articles report falsely that he was. It was just the statement, Gucci loafers of the parachuting world, that led some people to just think they were actually Gucci loafers. Also because this man had a fuck ton of money. He probably does own Gucci loafers, but that's just not what he was wearing when he died. They were jumping boots. I still think it's cute the movie added them. He also had gold Krugerrands, a South African currency. No one in Knoxville even knew what a Krugerrand was.
They were gold, and they have like a little kangaroo or an animal on the front.
And to top it all off, he had what they call a James Bond wristwatch that shot tear gas. Where do you even buy that? The skydiver's plane had crashed in Hayesville, North Carolina.
We did hear that a body had been found in Knoxville.
That's about 100 miles away from where the body was found. The plane was registered to a man from Lexington, Kentucky, Andrew Thornton II. Plot twist, Andrew Thornton was a police officer and a U.S. veteran. Turns out he had been living life on the edge and his luck finally ran out. After they had the body identified, they traced his flight path all the way back to North Georgia. That's when they learned that more cocaine had been dumped along the way. The duffel bag found on Thornton's body was identical to the one found with the bear. So who exactly is Andrew Thornton, and why was all of Lexington, Kentucky shocked when his body was found? Andrew Thornton II was the son of Andrew Carter Thornton, head of a horse breeding empire. They had at least 2 Derby winners under their belt. Safe to say they don't really need the money. He went to the University of Kentucky and decided school just wasn't for him, so he decided to enlist in the Army. He was actually awarded a Purple Heart, a medal only presented to those who were wounded or killed by enemy action. When he served in the Army, he particularly enjoyed flying and parachuting. In 1968, he returns home and gets married. But let's be real, this man doesn't want to settle down and live an incredibly wealthy, comfortable, luxurious Kentucky lifestyle. No, he's out chasing his next thrill. It was time to join the Lexington-Fayette Urban County, Kentucky Police Department. It was the 70s now. Drugs are on the rise, so the Lexington Police Department started a brand new narcotics unit, creating its first narcotics squad. A promise of seeing action draws in Thornton, hoping to get an adrenaline rush. His best friend, Bill Cannon, was already working in the narc unit, so he had an in. As a team, their MO was dressing like normal college students at bars near UK and busting kids for narcotics. Rumor had it, they would bust dealers and keep some of the drugs for themselves. I actually had an officer at my high school do this. He had confiscated some weed from a student, and that student was like terrified, thinking they were getting in trouble, and then noticed they never got in trouble. So rumor has it that they ratted out the officer. I don't know if they ratted out themselves in the process, but that's how I heard he got caught. A lot of crime amongst the adults happened at my high school. In 2014, my old lunch lady got busted for having a whole ass operation. My high school years were fall of 2006 to spring of 2010, so I was class of 2010. There was one main lunch line that definitely had the government official food. You'd use your lunch card. But then there was a second line, and the second line was a cash-only a la carte line, and it had much better food than the other line. Like, it was like buttermilk chicken tenders with like honey mustard, icing stuffed cookies. The french fries were better. It was just overall like better quality food. It was just like a little bit more expensive. I got my first job at 15 being a Hannah Montana impersonator, and also babysat pretty frequently. So once I had my own cash rolling in, I bought from that a la carte line every day until I graduated. Turns out, a la carte cash only line had no books and no register. And Miss Brenda Watts was pocketing all of that money for 15 years, which added up to a whopping $1,350,000. That's like $90,000 a year. on top of her $50,000 salary. So Miss Brenda Watts was making a whopping $140,000 a year as a lunch lady. And thank God she did, because honestly, I did not want to eat the cafeteria food from that other line. Back to Andrew Thornton II. There were allegations that not only was he and Cannon pocketing the drugs, they were reselling it. But why would a wealthy member of the Lexington elite high society turn to becoming a cop, stealing drugs, and then dealing said drugs on the street?
Something I really want to do is get a job at like Starbucks or like literally anywhere, because I just want to see what it's like. I think it would be really fun. Where do you think I should work that like isn't too much work? I don't know what's so hard to believe about getting a Lambo. Like, they're not even that expensive.
By 1975, Thornton was thriving in his established role as a dirty cop. And he really enjoyed showing off to his fellow cops by doing stunts like trying to jump over a car while wearing a loaded gun, and then said loaded gun going off and shooting himself in the leg. It just grazed his leg, but that is so Michael Scott coded.
Parkour, parkour!
That's some shit you would see on The Office. Sometime in 1975, Thornton decided it was time to graduate from drug dealing to drug smuggling with his plane that he owned, because of course he fucking owns a plane. He started with weed before he moved on to cocaine. Enter 24 Melanie Flynn, a civilian informant who thinks she's helping the police catch bad guys by informing Thornton and Cannon of dealers and buyers around the UK college campus. She caught on that she was working with dirty cops and that they might be the ones selling. One could speculate that this information upset Thornton and Cannon. One day she leaves for work and is never seen again. And she has never been found to this day. Maybe she got caught up with a dangerous dealer, or maybe she got caught up with some dirty cops who didn't want to get caught. Her car was found abandoned on the north side of Lexington. She was last seen talking to two people in a dark van. An investigation later by Kentucky State Police revealed there was a belief that those two people were Andrew Thornton and Bill Cannon. Later, her purse was found by a fisherman in the Kentucky River. A rumor emerged that Andrew became the subject of an internals affair investigation, which led to him quitting the police force. No one suspected that? No one stopped and went, huh, that's a little sus. In 1977, he moved on to smuggling full-time. Bradley Bryant, Thornton's childhood best friend, decided to get involved, considering he himself also grew up a privileged brat who became a successful businessman with links to organized crime all over the country. Is this what happens when you just grow up in prestigious private schools and military academies? Get a career as a James Bond villain? Is this just the life you lead? Is that what all little rich brats aspire to be one day? You're just that fucking bored because you have everything? If you're so bored, give it all up. Give it to the rest of us. Naturally, Bryant wanting to graduate from being a shady businessman and Andrew Thornton wanting to evolve from drug smuggler to full-blown drug trafficker, they go to Vegas and meet up with Lee and Jimmy Chagra, aka the Chagra brothers. They had connections in South America, Colombia, and Mexico and made a deal with them, allowing Thornton to import larger quantities of weed. Andrew became stoked because now he gets to risk his life importing some weed every now and again from South America, all in the name of just getting some thrills. The billionaires who died in the submarine wanting to see the Titanic are starting to make more and more sense to me the more I learn about this fucker. So this man started importing 10,000 pounds of weed to Kentucky. That's $5 million in today's money, by the way. In 1978, Lee Chagra was killed in his office in Vegas, and within months, his brother Jimmy Chagra was arrested for drug trafficking and was to be put on trial. And as if the people in the story couldn't feel any more made up, the judge for his trial was named Judge John Wood, also known as Maximum John, known for the sentences he would hand out. Maximum John. Maximum John. That just, these people don't sound real. None of this is real. This isn't real. This is... The day before the trial was supposed to start, Judge Wood was assassinated in his driveway by a hitman hired by Jimmy Chagra. Which, like, how could you commit a more obvious crime? The first bizarre twist in this assassination is that the hitman he hired was Woody Harrelson's father. Charles Harrelson. The second bizarre event is Jimmy only got 30 years for being a drug trafficker and hiring a hitman to kill a judge. How does that work? Andrew Thornton becomes an FBI person of interest. In 1981, at a hotel at the Philadelphia airport, Bradley Bryant was arrested with a huge supply of automatic weapons, night vision goggles, and James Bond-level communication gear. A much larger weapons stash was found in a warehouse that belonged to Bryant back in Lexington. He got 15 years of prison. Hidden amongst Bryant's stash is a notebook with Andrew Thornton's name in it. Time to go into hiding and on the run, using his airplane. Thornton does get caught and arrested, but his plane was completely clean, assuming somebody tipped him off. So they let him go with very little evidence against him. He serves 5 months. So naturally, that's when he's like, well, the 70s were all about weed, but the 80s were about cocaine. In September of 1985, on a flight back from a pickup in Colombia, he and the bear had their fateful encounter. The destination was Lexington, Kentucky, but a pit stop was planned for Georgia, where he had some co-conspirators in cahoots with moving coke. Thornton did not make his landing in Georgia. As he was flying over the Chattahoochee National Forest, he started throwing out cocaine into the woods. He attached the duffel bag to parachutes and dropped them. With the remaining cocaine strapped to him, he put the plane on autopilot and he jumped to his death. Theory 1 is that his parachute just failed to deploy and he fell to his death. Theory 2 is that he hit his head on the door before jumping out of the plane, which is what was included in the movie. There was a cut on his forehead on his body that suggested this as a plausible cause. Theory 3 is that the 75 pounds of cocaine hit him in the head, knocked him out, and then he fell to his death. But why jump out of the plane at all? Rumor has it that he was paranoid that he was being surveyed by the DEA, thought that they were on his trail, and he decided to jump for it. But after a check, they did not have any planes following him or surveillance of him at that time. Another rumor is that he was ripping off the Colombian suppliers and wanted to make it look like he died so that he could run away with all of the drugs. Except, joke's on him, he actually did die. And sometime after that fateful night, a female black bear found a duffel bag of cocaine and ate it. Go on a bender for about 45 minutes, overdose, and die. When the GBI arrived on the scene, there was no cocaine in the bag. So did the bear eat 75 pounds of cocaine? Is that even possible? It's not. The pathologist detected about 3 grams of cocaine in the bear that was 95% pure, which means someone had to have come by the scene and collected the rest of the cocaine. This infamous bear went on to be known by the public as Pablo Escobar, Cokie the Bear, and just plain old Cocaine Bear. Supposedly, you can visit the infamous Cocaine Bear at the Kentucky Fun Mall, where they were taxidermied for all to see, and they even included a little snow backdrop. However,
the bear had been dead for at least 6 weeks.
The bear was dead for at least 6 weeks before it was found, which means it would have been too decomposed to successfully taxidermy. As the GBI declared, the Cocaine Bear was a female, and the taxidermy bear on display is a male. So they even got the gender wrong. If you ask Fun Mall though, they'll tell you, our taxidermy bear is 100% Cocaine Bear, and if disbelief is your choice, then we created the most fantastic story ever. However, no one seems to know where the remains of Cocaine Bear went. Anyone is free to claim their taxidermy bear is the Cocaine Bear. I'm kind of miffed that this taxidermy Cocaine Bear is in Kentucky and not in Georgia. Like, if you believe this is the real Cocaine Bear, why not give them back to their homeland? Even if it's not the real bear, the Cocaine Bear monument and spectacle should be in North Georgia. It's giving British Museum. Give us our artifacts back. All right, so what were the similarities? Andrew Thornton was a drug runner, threw a bunch of cocaine out of his plane on his way from Colombia over North Georgia, jumped out, hit his head, fell to his death. And a black female bear did cocaine. I'm gonna say it's kinda sorta inspired by real events. This one's gonna be in the middle. It's gonna be kind of. We've decided that based on a true story is a spectrum. It's not black and white, okay? This is a spectrum. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you have any horror movies based on a true story you would like for me to cover. Try not to overdose on cocaine like that bear, and keep it creepy.